Hey guys, Winter here back with another ladder map breakdown. This time we're on Prion Terraces, one of the more interesting of the 2v2 maps in the pool right now, with a few specific things I do want to point out that players used to play in more standard maps might not notice. But just to start out, Prion Terraces has your pretty standard expansion on the low ground. It's not the same as Dust Towers or Orbital Shipyard, but it does have a smaller ramp at the second base that's relatively easy to wall off. Now, very quickly, we get into the most interesting feature of the map, is how many gold bases there are. There's actually 2 gold bases on either side, which for Terran and Protoss players are almost always a third base. Whereas for Zerg players, on the other hand, a lot of the times, especially, well, in every matchup, I'd say between 40 and 60% of Zerg players, especially at the higher level, look to exploit these bases either as their second or as a quick third base, so they can get that jump start to their economy, the boost in income that gold bases give you. For those that don't know, gold bases return 40% more minerals, which means you can mine quicker with less workers and therefore get a jump start in your economy. Now, there are several ways of dealing with this early on. Just noticing that they have a gold base is very important to realize, wow, this Zerg player, well, I'm assuming it's a Zerg player at this point, will probably or could potentially be looking to do a strong early attack. There are a couple different styles for dealing with this. Honestly, as a Terran or Protoss player, if you're struggling against Zerg, I would consider this as a map to potentially veto, because it is kind of difficult to get a handle on what Zerg could be doing. In ZVZ, it also becomes an interesting dynamic between a player who expands to the more vulnerable gold base and a player who expands to the safer second base and kind of dancing between that. But as a Terran or Protoss player, you have to kind of decide and do your best to scout whether they're going to go for a big early attack or they're just going to sit back and macro up and take advantage of that gold base to build a stronger mid-game economy. Moving on from there, we see the gauntlet, I guess you could say, in the middle of the map, the valley between these high grounds, which is pretty wide, which means like a Terran or Protoss army can get surrounded by a Zerg one pretty quick. And in matchups like Terran versus Terran with tank drops, you have these high grounds on either side. Well, high grounds on either side when you're trying to attack in or defend that can be exploited to great use with tanks or any units that really use the high ground advantage. Now, for extra bases, you have the raised platform, which is further away from your main, but also a little bit more defensible because of those ramps, and a little bit further away from your opponent as well. There are the outside bases, which are quite exposed, but they're pretty far out of the way, considering most attacks happen through the middle of the map. It's not a large map. The rush distance is relatively short. And the only watchtowers are in the corners as well, which are pretty good for scouting drops. They don't go all the way up to the top of the map, so you got to be a little bit careful to have a unit there. But this is mostly for controlling this side of the map to see counterattacks or cheeky drops coming in that are trying not to go all the way around but take a little bit of a shortcut. Now, there are 2 more gold bases in the middle of the map as well. These are rarely taken except in the pretty late game here when armies are maxed out and you can't really find a way to engage each other. And it's just kind of natural. One player takes one side of the map, the other player takes the other side rather than expanding to both sides, if that makes sense. But it's kind of a stylistic thing. Now, remember, the biggest thing here is those gold bases, especially against Zerg, no matter what race you are. And that's something to kind of get a feel for. You'll usually see some relatively different builds, especially out of Zerg players on this map, and that's something to watch out for and keep in mind. And maybe look at your replays and get an idea of the changes that most Zerg players will make when playing on this map. But if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. This is one of the weirder maps in the pool. But thank you guys for watching. Good luck, have fun. Make sure to like, subscribe, and check out the stream. I'll see you guys later.